Hey everybody, welcome back to the homestead. Well, this was quite a week on the homestead. We got almost everything accomplished that we wanted to get done, except for one kind of disappointment for me personally, and that is that deer season hasn't started off to such a great start. I have gotten one deer in the freezer already this year, early in the season during archery season, but this past weekend started rifle season and I just haven't had much luck. Now, part of the problem is that I haven't gotten out as much as I would like to because we've been busy processing our pigs. But the days that I have gone out, I'll have to admit, I just haven't seen nearly as many deer as I have in past years.
So most of our time was spent processing our 2 pigs that we raised for our family this year.
I'm still hoping to get out and do some more deer hunting. In fact, I'm hoping to get out yet this afternoon. I went for a little while this morning. I actually did see a pretty nice doe this morning, but I never had a good shot at her, and I'm just the type of hunter who won't take a shot unless I know that I can do it humanely and ethically. So I'm hoping she'll come back around this afternoon and I'll be able to get her. And I'm hoping that I can still bring you guys some deer footage before the season ends.
There's still about 6 more days of the rifle season for us here in southern Missouri, and then the archery season will pick back up, so we have plenty of time to stock the freezer. This is just the rifle season, which comes and goes very quickly.
Right. In fact, archery season goes all the way through mid-January, and truth be known, I actually prefer archery season over rifle season. I just always have better luck. I think during rifle season the deer are just so spooked because there's so many more hunters out. So I really prefer bow hunting, and but I'll take what I can get. We need to get some in the freezer.
Back in the spring, we started raising our pigs. We actually raised 3 pigs this year. One which was sold to a customer, and we ended up taking her to the butcher in early October. The other 2 we have been raising for our family, and last week was a week for us to start processing those 2. We'd like to talk with you guys a little bit about how it went with those 2 pigs. We did some filming. Now, I want to let you know that we're going to be very careful in the editing process not to show anything that will be really startling, you know, no gunshots, that kind of thing, but we will be showing video of the pigs when they're dead and some things that may be sensitive to some people. So we just want to warn you ahead of time that we're going to do that, but it's going to be very tasteful.
Right. If those things bother you and you want to skip ahead in the video, toward the end of this video, we're actually going to be showing you how much meat we ended up with total out of these 2 pigs. So we're excited to show you guys that.
So don't miss it. Make sure you stay on to the end. We want to pull it all out and show you what the meat of 2 pigs really looks like.
So we started off by processing Pee-wee. Now Pee-wee is the pig that was always the smallest out of the 3, which is why we named her Pee-wee. We weren't sure at the end whether or not she was actually going to live up to that name because it looked like she was pretty darn close in size to the other pig that we were keeping for ourselves. But in the end, she did end up living up to her name.
Here.
We started out pretty early in the day, going out and dispatching her right out in their pen area. We like to do it right there where they live because it keeps them nice and calm. Everything just seems like a completely normal day for them, and there is very little stress on the animals. When I get the shot, I'm just taking it.
Right.
Now, I'll be honest that taking care of the pigs or processing the pigs, butchering them, whatever you want to call it, is kind of a hard process for me. For those of you who have been watching us for a while or even just started watching us recently, you may know that pigs are my absolute favorite animal to raise on the homestead. I spend the entire summer getting them tame. Normally when we get them as little babies, they're not very tame, so we tame them. We spend a lot of time with them. We want to give them a great life. So when the day comes to, get them ready for the freezer, it's kind of a bittersweet day. They are doing exactly what they were brought here to do, which is to provide food for our family. But on the other hand, you know, because we have spent so much time with them, there's definitely a bond. So we really tread carefully on how we do that. We want to make sure we do it in a very humane way so that the pigs are stress-free and that we can do it as quickly and as humanely as possible.
Step on her leg. So after Pee-wee was all taken care of, we bring her back up near to the house, and that is where we can hang her to see what her end weight was.
Yeah, we have a scale that hooks to the tractor, and then we can hang the pig off of the scale. Works out really nicely, and we were actually pretty surprised at Pee-wee's weight.
She was 260 pounds, which we are very pleased with.
Right. Yeah, I was, you know, we're always going for that 250 to 300 pound range, so we're very happy that she was over the 250 pound mark.
She wasn't really dirty because it hasn't been super muddy. It's been pretty cold actually, but we did spray her down before we started the skinning process.
Now on our homestead, we skin our pigs. We don't scrape the hair off of them like you may see some people do, or which was a much more common practice in the past. In that case, you would either take really hot water and pour it over the pig and then take a knife to scrape all of the hair off, or you would actually submerge the pig in really hot water and then use a special knife to scrape the hair off. That's just the way that we've always done it, and it works out really well for us, and it makes the process very simple.
With Pee-wee, we decided to do the skinning process a little bit differently than we had done in the past. We've seen some other homesteaders actually start the skinning process with the animal laying down even before they eviscerate them. And so we thought, you know, maybe that is easier. We didn't really know why people had done that, but we thought, hey, if there are several people doing it this way, there must be a reason, it must be easier. So we started the skinning process with her laying down on her back with her belly exposed so we could skin the front and it would kind of flop over. Once we got that all taken care of, then we were able to lift her up and then skin the back of her.
After that, we started the gutting process. We got everything taken out. We cleaned her really well so she was a nice clean carcass, and then we went on with the butchering process. Pretty much everything else we did the way that we always do, and things went very smoothly. Now I'll remind you that this year we're not doing a real in-depth step-by-step pig processing, but last year we did. So if you want to go back and watch last year's videos where we show you how to do all of the different cuts and everything, go back and watch that entire series that we did last year. We'll leave a link to it.
So the first pig ended up taking us 2.5 days. The first day we did the killing, the skinning, we cut her in half and then cut her into quarters, and she rested in the refrigerator overnight.
On the second day, we were actually able to take all of the pieces back out. It was a nice, cool, almost cold day outside, so we were able to work outside without the meat getting very warm, which was nice. And we were able to get her cut into all of what you would consider the retail cuts of meats. Your pork chops, your ground meat, your pork bellies, your ribs, and the roasts. Yeah. So we were able to get that all done on day 2. We were able to get most of it packaged, and then we just had a little bit to do on that half day the next day.
The next day we concentrated on grinding the meat that we wanted off of the pig, package those things up. I actually saved quite a few of the bones. I got those roasted and I started broth that day. So we accomplished a lot. Going into it, we thought we could do all of that in 2 days, but we were wrong, and it took us about 2.5 days.
So after we were done with all of that, it was time to move on with the last pig that we had for this year, and that was the pig that we had named Penny. Now Penny, again, was kind of a, difficult situation for me because she was very tame. She was one that, would come running up to me when I went out there. So you do kind of have to detach yourself a little bit. It's hard sometimes, but you guys, when you're living this lifestyle, you go into it with the mindset that this is going to be food for my family, and that's just what you have to do. So even though it's difficult, you need to work through it. And without getting real graphic, I'll just tell you guys that for me personally, the second that I pull the trigger on the gun, she goes from being the pig that I raised all summer to being food. And so it's kind of an instant switch for me, which makes it a little bit easier. From there on out, I'm just in processing mode, and we're just getting that pig ready for the freezer. $305? I'd say $305. We were extremely happy with how much Penny weighed. Like I said, when we did Pee-wee, we thought that they were pretty close in weight. So when we weighed Penny and realized that she was almost 50 pounds more, she weighed in at 305 pounds, we were over the top happy because that's a lot of extra meat for our family. Now for Penny, we went back to doing things the way that we always have. I guess I'm just a creature of habit. I don't really like change, so once I'm comfortable doing something a certain way, that's just the way I like to do it forever. So for me, it just made a lot more sense to skin her while she was hanging instead of laying her on her back like we did with Pee-wee. Also on Pee-wee, we skinned her and then gutted her, and to me that just doesn't make a lot of sense. If any of you do it that way and can explain why, I would like to know. But for me personally, I like to get the guts out. That way, if you do accidentally nick something with your knife, or she poops a little bit, which happens pretty often, and it comes out, it's landing on the skin, which you're ultimately going to take off anyway, instead of landing on the meat, which is going to end up in your freezer. So I like to always gut the animal before I skin it, and that's what we did with Penny, and it worked out great.
We didn't really see an advantage really either of skinning laying down versus skinning hanging up, so we just went back to what we always do, which is to skin hanging up from the tractor. One thing that we talked about when we were working on the pigs is that pigs really are the hardest animal for us to skin out of all of the animals we process.
Yeah, their hide is so thick.
It's thick and there's a lot of fat, which is good. It just was much more time consuming than any other animal such as deer or goats.
Right, and actually there's a lot more hair on a pig than you would think. If you haven't raised pigs, you may not know, but pigs have quite a bit of hair, and it's a real coarse hair, so when you're trying to cut through with your knife, it's actually pretty hard to cut through. We're extremely happy with the amount of meat that we got from her, and in fact in just a minute we're going to show you guys both of the pigs everything that we got and talk to you about why we do things the way we do and how this is going to feed our family for this coming year. So here you go. This is what we got from our 2 pigs. We're going to go through these individually and show you guys what we got from each pig, but this is it. This is what we got. We're super excited. Let's start breaking it down and showing you exactly what we got. All right, let's start with pig number 1 and go through each of the cuts, and I'll explain to you why we do what we do. Let's start with pork chops. Everybody loves pork chops. Now, we cut our pork chops extra thick. We don't, freeze them and cut them real thin like you get in the grocery store. We leave them however thick they are, right between the ribs. So our pork chops are actually 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick, which makes you end up with less, but you don't need to eat as many at a time to fill up. So we ended up with 10 packages of pork chops with 2 chops in each package. So 20 pork chops from the first pig. From there, we move to pork belly. This is what will be turned into bacon. Now, I'll do this a little bit at a time over the winter, but we will thaw each one of these out, and we'll probably get 5 to 7 pounds of bacon per package. So we got 4 packages of pork belly. Next up, we have 2 pork roasts. These are from the shoulder. If I remember correctly, I think they're picnics, but don't quote me on that. These are from the shoulder though, 2 really nice pork roasts. And then we have the spare ribs. You get spare ribs off of each side of the pig, right above the belly when you're butchering the pig. And then from there we have the pork tenderloins, which you get off the back, from the inside of the back. And then we have 2 packages of pork hocks, which we'll smoke, and then Sarah will use that when we make soups and things like that. Now you may be asking, why are there no hams? Why are there no Boston butts or some of those other cuts of pork that you may be used to seeing? And that's because we as a family have decided that that is more important to us as ground meat. So we grind as much of the meat as we can, because for us it goes much further in meals as ground meat than it does as a big chunk like a ham. So the hams, the Boston butts, all the other roasts, everything from the shoulder except for the 2 roasts that we saved, and everything from the hindquarters becomes ground meat. In this case, on this first pig, we ended up with 67 pounds of ground meat, which is awesome. That's 67 suppers that we can make out of just this ground meat. So that's why we do it that way. It goes much further. Now, the other thing we don't do is we don't turn any of this into sausage right away. We don't add seasonings and all of that. We leave it as just ground pork, and then we make it into sausage 1 package at a time if we want sausage. We have a really good seasoning mix that we use, and we'll just add a little bit to this, and then we'll fry it up for breakfast sausage or whatever we want. But it's much more universal if you just leave it as ground pork, so that's what we do.
Now let's move on to the second pig. All of the meat that we got from the second pig we have laid out here on this table. We'll start with pork chops. Again, we had 10 packages of pork chops with 2 each, so we've got 20 chops. Now these suckers, like Kevin said, are so thick and they're so tasty. We absolutely love them grilled. Next door is the pork bellies. 4 giant pieces of pork belly that Kevin will smoke and cure for bacon. We're super excited about that. 2 packages of spare ribs, 2 pork roasts from the shoulder, pork hocks, pork jowls, and the pork tenderloins. And here is all the ground meat. Just like the first pig, we ground everything that we thought wasn't a necessity for us or what we didn't like, so we put it all into the ground meat. This pig, the second pig, which was bigger, we got 79 pounds of ground meat. So 79 meals worth of ground pork for our family. It's awesome. I'm so excited. So the grand total for the ground meat, just the ground meat, was 146 pounds. That's 146 meals over the next year. That will allow us to use ground meat about 3 times a week if we would like to.
Yeah, we're just so excited to have all of this meat. It's been such a blessing for us. I'm already looking forward to having next year's pigs here on the homestead. We hope you enjoyed watching us raise these pigs all summer as much as we actually enjoyed raising them. You know, like I've said, pigs are my absolute favorite animal, and I know that this will be something that we're doing every single year here on our homestead. In one of our last videos, I asked for you guys to pray for my dad. Thank you so much for all of the prayers. The day that you see this video, he'll actually be having his heart surgery that afternoon. So if you could keep him in your prayers again today, that would be great. He is a Vietnam vet who's suffering some pretty serious medical conditions due to exposure to Agent Orange during the war. And so hopefully the surgery will help solve at least some of those problems for him. You guys, thank you so much for stopping by the homestead today. If you enjoy our channel and you enjoy the life that we're living, if you would share this with all of the people that you know on social media, we would appreciate that. And until next time, thank you guys so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.